7. Barrett outside, the switch. Doncic goes, oh, what a great step! And then he hammers it home! Broke his ankles!
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. I hope you guys are doing well, and today we're going to be talking about a very controversial topic. And by the way, before we officially get into the video, I really do appreciate the birthday wishes. You guys are absolutely amazing. But this topic's pretty much going to be, is Immanuel Quickley progressing into a future starting point guard for the New York Knicks? And I know some people look at him as a point guard. I know some people look at him as a two. And I'm going to keep it real with you guys throughout this entire video. There's going to be no hatred. It's just me keeping it completely real, at least of what I'm going to be talking about, at least what I see when I watch the games and watch back the film. As of right now, I still believe he's a combo. He could play point guard, but I don't believe in him playing it full time. He could also play off the ball. He's not someone I continuously trust with the ball in his hands yet, consistently throughout an entire game, or if he goes on to get a start. So Quickley, obviously, we absolutely loved him last year. I'm still a fan of Immanuel Quickley. He's a positive dude, seems like a class act off the court. He's an extremely hard worker, and he doesn't give up on a play, which I absolutely love about Immanuel Quickley on both ends of the floor. But obviously, he was the fan favorite because he was selected 25th overall. We weren't expecting a lot. We weren't expecting him to get minutes. But then he went on to average 18 to 19 minutes, which is actually a lot with Tom Thibodeau. And he was kind of like this energetic guy, came off the bench, hit big-time threes, constant floaters, would play hard on the defense side of the basketball. But he wasn't much of a point guard. One thing we have to really agree on, though, is that he's definitely progressed. Anyone that says he hasn't progressed playing the point guard position is just lying to themselves, and they're just a straight-up hater. So to start off the season, Quickley was really shaky, or you could say most of the season. If you take a look at the stats, if you're a stats nerd, or you just take a look at the overall, when you just take a look at the overall season, you could say Quickley's been good for 2 months, which isn't great when you're talking about the entire season when it comes to efficiency, shot selection, the way he's playing the game, the pace he's playing at, his playmaking. And I felt like it was a very hard adjustment period for Quickley, that defenses have kind of figured him out. So he was like, I'm going to have to go back, learn how to draw fouls again. I'm going to have to learn how to play the point guard / shooting guard position. But there were some things you couldn't defend. Obviously, you could say the pace he was playing at wasn't great. He just straight up wasn't knocking down shots. You could say he was extremely rusty, but he was rusty for months of basketball. But that was an ugly period. The defense wasn't great. He was turning the ball over. He was barely attempting floaters. Defenses did a really good job keying in on him. But Quickley, what do we love about him? He's a hard worker. He's a gym rat. He's a basketball nerd. So I'm sure he watched the film, put in the work. He's like, I'm going to find other ways to create separation. I'm not always going to go to that floater because they did a good job figuring it out. But one thing, if Quickley is capable of being a point guard, like a future starting point guard for the New York Knicks, starting point guard, one thing I absolutely love, you see the best point guards do it. Chris Paul's a great example. He knows how to catch guys on his hip. He knows how to catch guys behind him that are, like, at first they're in front of him, but then he does a great job baiting them in and catching them behind him, catching the personnel behind him, and he does a great job getting to that floater. And something he's really changed up is he's kind of more slithery. He does a better job changing directions. It's not just a straight line speed to the basket anymore. Like, you think he's going up with that floater because he used it so much in his career. Now he has that crafty little scoop shot around the rim, which I definitely do think he's going to continuously use. Yes, sometimes you'd like to see him go stronger to the basket, but we know he's not this physical freak of nature. He's 6'3". He has a decently long wingspan, though. Like, he's not the tallest in the world, but he has a long wingspan, which we love about Quickley. He's gotten a little bit stronger. Sometimes he can get killed around the basket a little bit. But he's not the best of athletes, so he's definitely going to have to rely on finesse throughout his career. And I feel like he's become more of a finesse player, changing directions, changing the pace of the game. And it just seems like his impact at the point guard position when he has run it this year is a higher impact when it comes to changing the flow of the game. Last year, it would be like running in transition, he's going to jack up a three, or he was more in catch and shoot situations last year. He's still in those situations now, but it just feels like he's matured more. He's even said he was looking back at the best point guards, figuring out ways to draw fouls. And I feel like when your shot's not falling, you have to find ways to get to the free throw line. And Quickley does a great job getting to the free throw line, at least as of late. He's really learned And I'm not going to put a ceiling on Quickley what he can be, because he is still young. It is only his second year in the league, and he's a hard worker. A lot of people, when they talk about ceiling, they just talk about physical tools, or, yeah, mostly physical tools and stats. But the most important thing no one really talks about in the pre-draft process of drafting someone or really evaluating someone, do they have it up here? And Immanuel Quickley has it up there. He has an extremely great work ethic. So I do think he has improved his craftiness around the basket, like finishing around the basket. He's even shown some reverse layups this year. I'm sure like we barely saw them last year, at least in my opinion. He had one ridiculous scoop layup versus the Miami Heat. So let's get into the mental part of the game here. So let's start off with he's not afraid. He's fearless. He's not afraid to take any shots at all. If it's from way outside on the perimeter, if it's sometimes floaters from like the free throw line, like Randall told a story on the JJ Redick podcast. This was back in his rookie year, though. He's kind of matured more. When he would have a wide open lane to the basket, Randall's like, just take the damn layup. Like, why are you shooting a freaking floater from there? But Quickley, in my opinion, is our most clutch player in the fourth quarter. Like, yes, you could take a look at like RJ's stats, like his efficiency. You could take a look at like Evan Fournier. He's hit some big time shots. But to me, it may just be like a gut feeling type of thing. When Quickley has the ball in the fourth quarter, I just have a feeling we're gonna find a way to get to the bucket. Because this isn't a knock against RJ. RJ just gets no calls. That's not his fault at all. Quickley finds ways to get calls. He finds ways to get to the free throw line. He's had the bigger production of stats in the fourth quarters. Like he's had over like digit quarters sometimes, but he just finds ways to get to the basket. He finds ways to draw fouls at the 3-point line, hit huge 4-point plays. And I feel like that's huge to have at the point guard position. You need someone that's mentally tough, not afraid of the big moment, and Quickley definitely brings that to the table. And obviously, like I mentioned, the floater is huge to have. Like when you're not physically a crazy, physically imposing player, not a fantastic athlete, you have to have that floater to get over those top centers in the league or just top big men in the league. So there's another part of it, though, that you would like to see Quickley expand on his package from the outside of creating separation. He has shown that he can break guys down. He broke down Raul Neto a couple times. He broke down Tyrese Maxey. You could say he tripped on the screen, though. Quickley's handle isn't terrible. I think he has a solid handle. It's not like one of the best in the NBA. Don't know why my mouse made that sound if you didn't hear that. It's pretty awkward. But there is an inconsistency of creating separation outside on the perimeter. So he definitely does have to utilize screens a lot. And I like the way he utilizes screens. He's really improved compared to last year. Last year, he just looked to score, floater, like a screen comes, he's just looking for that floater, or he takes an off-balance, awkward jumper. And he's still taking a lot of those this year, but I feel like the balance on his jumpers are a lot better this year, because when he's off balance and chucking up some weird, not off one leg, but weird push shot, I hate that sometimes when he just caught himself in a lot of weird situations at the beginning of the season, trying to draw fouls instead of just focusing on making the shot. And I feel like when his feet are set, I just have a big time feeling it's going in. But he's done a better job of just making the proper reads out of the pick and roll. But yeah, he does need to get better of improving his package, maybe becoming a little more finesse outside on the perimeter, because he's 6'3". He's not someone crazy tall that you could just rely on to. He's not like a Halliburton that he's just going to shoot over you so easily, if you know what I mean, even though he does have a pretty decent wingspan. And also, a thing you maybe would like to see Quickley expand upon is not always just look to go to the basket, go to the basket. When he does catch guys on his hip, most of the time it's just a pull up from like to get to that floater, or just like get to the basket, maneuver, and just do that scoop layup, changing directions and changing speeds. You would maybe like to see when he catches guys on his hip, like study a Chris Paul a little more, because Chris Paul's only 6 foot, but he's able to utilize this, but he also has a high set point. Quickley, you could say he shoots a kind of low while Chris Paul shoots it higher, at least in my opinion, when I see Chris Paul shoot, and he fades away more and does a better job getting it off. But we're also talking about one of the best point guards ever. But Quickley needs to figure out a better job catching guys on his hip and pulling up from mid-range territory to become less predictable of an offensive player. But he's a hard worker. He's barely had any years in the league, so maybe he does go on to progress in that department. But now let's talk about one of the most controversial or polarizing parts of his game, or maybe the most hated part of his game. It's his playmaking, vision. Just does he have what it takes to play the point guard position? And I don't think people realize it's not just passing. It's not just seeing the right things out there on the basketball court. It's playing at the right pace. like controlling your dribble or just like not picking up your dribble and those types of things. So I do think times Quickley picks up his dribble a little too early or he picks it up in weird spots. It doesn't consistently happen like crazy. Like Frank Ntilikina used to do it like crazy that were like dribble penetrate, dribble penetrate. He picks up a dribble for no reason outside on the perimeter. Quickley does get stuck in those weird situations. And you can also say Quickley does play erratic at times. Besides the passing, we're going to be getting into the positives. Don't worry, I'm not a Quickley hater. That sometimes like we don't need a bucket, or we obviously need a bucket, but we don't need a bucket that fast. I'm like, slow down the game. It's all right, it's all right. But maybe that's the way Quickley likes to get into his rhythm. But sometimes he pushes the pace, plays too erratic, in my opinion. And when he's playing erratic, he can't make the best of reads. He has great chemistry with Obi Toppin out of the pick and roll and running the floor. But sometimes I'm just like, you could take time off the clock. You don't have to necessarily take that shot. So there is an inconsistency. That's one of the main reasons Quickley hasn't been the most efficient throughout his first 2 years in his career. He can take erratic shots and sometimes just make boneheaded decisions with the basketball when he's just like, obviously basketball, you shouldn't be great. You shouldn't be thinking like crazy out there on the floor. Obviously there's the IQ part of it, but you should be more reactionary out there on the basketball floor. But sometimes Quickly's just like full on pushing the pace, like, oh, like it looks like his head's about to explode. Like, should I pass the ball or should I just chuck up the shot? But Quickley has shown when he's under control that he can make the right reads. He's improved when it comes to dribble penetrating, getting in the lane, getting the defensive collapse, kicking it out. And I feel like he has more of those swing one-handed passes that are efficient. Like they're getting there fast. Like he did it in the Clippers game, kicking it out to a Cam Reddish that we didn't really see last year. It looked like he was just forced to play the point guard position last year. I'm not saying he was. He wants to be a point guard. I feel like Quickley does. That's why he's learning how to play it. But it just looks more natural when he's passing the basketball now. But he does a good job finding Obi, screen and rolls, him going to the basket. He just pushes it in transition more, or he's better with those outlet passes. But then there's some times that like Quickley doesn't have crazy passes in his bag, which he doesn't really need. You don't need some fancy shit all the time. But sometimes when Obi's cutting, like let's say it's not a screen and roll, it's just him cutting, he can't find him fast enough, or he doesn't have the reactionary time sometimes. At least right now, I'm sure he may figure it out on film sometime, that Obi's cutting and then he sees him too late, or RJ's cutting, he sees him too late, and that happens far too often with the New York Knicks. It's not just him, it's Alec Burks as well. So it's like, does he have the constant velocity to really fit passes into tight windows? Because those special point guards, like special passing vision point guards, like Alonzo does that. Like some of the best point guards in the league, like Stephen Curry. You see Stephen Curry capable of doing that. And there's just moments that he makes the wrong read. Like he'll pass it into traffic when Evan Fournier's wide open on the perimeter, or RJ Barrett's wide open and no one's near him. And it's very frustrating when it is towards the end of games or when we can make a momentum changing play and he just doesn't recognize it. But there's much more that goes into it than just passing the basketball. He's capable of passing, but it's just making the right reads, just seeing the way the defense is playing, like the offense, and just sometimes not picking up your dribble too early, sometimes not playing erratic for no reason. I'm not saying though, like I feel like his shooting, like his combination of shooting, like with confidence, you could say that's a lot of point guards nowadays in the NBA. You could say Lillard's erratic at times, but going back to his offense, it's positive to have a point guard that could shoot the basketball well from the outside. His shooting splits are not great due to the shaky start he got off to. It's a combination of the shaky start he got off to, poor shot selection at times. He's reined it in. Sometimes, and that poor shot selection goes into not being able to draw fouls, or him struggling to draw fouls and just focusing on drawing fouls more than knocking down shots. But his passing definitely has progressed. He can make the basic reads. He's a solid passer. I'm not going to say he's a good or bad passer. I'm not saying he's bad. He's a solid passer, but when he's not on, it's not pretty. I'll just say that. Sometimes he can turn the ball over and really telegraph his passes. But there's more that goes into it. The pace he plays at. The point guard position is one of the hardest positions. It's one of the hardest positions to draft, in my opinion, at least if you're the New York Knicks. But I feel like I didn't touch on his shooting a lot. Like, he shot over league average last year from the outside. Like I said, he's capable of getting to the free throw line and he knocks it down at a very high clip. Sorry if I'm a little all over the place. Like, there's so much to cover with Immanuel Quickley. He should be a better free throw shooter than he is right now. 88% is amazing, but he should be at like 90, 91%. There's been so many free throws this season. I'm like, damn, that went in and out. Like, are you kidding me? But you have to be happy with the progression of looking to throw it ahead more, dribble penetrating, kicking it out, kind of has more of those swing, one-handed passes. He's not just looking for those floaters. He's a little more crafty around the rim. He's finding different ways of figuring out angles, which you really do like. He's reining in his shot selection, but at the end of the day, it's all about consistency. If we're being real, there's been more not so great than good this year with Immanuel Quickley. He's had months that he struggled like crazy, but I feel like that was a part of just adjusting to how the defenses were. Like, the defenses really adjusted to him, and he had to figure out kind of a new way to play the position, or both the positions, point guard and shooting guard. But worst case scenario, he's just going to be a very nice player off the bench. But he's a leader, which you love. He's vocal. Like, his confidence, like I said, is off the charts. There was that one time when he was on the bench, I think it was against the Pistons. He was talking to Obi. He was talking to McBride. He was talking to Jericho Sims. He had the iPad. He was pointing out where they should go out there on the floor. He's a second-year player, but he's doing a great job taking these guys under his wing. Now, getting into the defense, we know he's not crazy strong, even though he has gotten stronger. We know he's 6'3". He can get killed in the paint. I'm not going to lie. There is times he can just get bullied in the paint. And it's not just his strength. It's his lack of not great athleticism. He's a solid athlete. He's not some crazy above the rim guy. But sometimes you can struggle with those athletic, twitchy guys on the defense side of the basketball. But he makes up for not having crazy athleticism to block shots and not being crazy tall with how hard he plays. He plays ridiculously hard on the defense side of the basketball. He doesn't gamble as much, which I do like. I think he's an okay defender. There's going to be games that he's really good defensively or good defensively, and then there's going to be games that he just doesn't have the proper awareness when it comes to switches. But you could say Thibodeau's system maybe isn't the greatest sometimes. He may run zone when he doesn't have to run zone. We saw that up against Charlotte. Made no sense, but he does a solid job reading the passing lane. Just his eyes are always wide open. I feel like he's always aware, but there's going to be times that he doesn't make the proper reads, or sometimes he doesn't really recognize. He may get caught on screen sometimes because he's not the strongest, but I feel like he's going to figure it out. It's just a big time. I feel like the huge thing with Quickley, it's just inconsistency. But I'm not going to label a ceiling on him. He's still young. He played 2 years of college basketball. He's not crazy young, but it's his second year in the league. I don't care how many years of college basketball he played. It's still the NBA. It's his second year. He's a hard worker. He's mentally tough. He's going to figure out ways to get better, whatever role he ends up playing in. And I feel like the final question is, does Tom Thibodeau believe in him to be a point guard? Tom Thibodeau's not going to be here long term. Next year may be his last year. But when we had no available point guard, I believe Burks was out and Rose was out. Tibbs started McBride over Quickley. So does the front office or does the organization, the coaching staff, look at him as a point guard? They're like, he's not ready yet, or he's just not a point guard, because they started McBride over him. And we know Thibodeau doesn't love rookies. But let me know down below your thoughts on Immanuel Quickley. He's had a great month. I'll put the stats on the screen. Efficient. But you look at his overall year, he's not even shooting 40% from the field. Like I mentioned why, but yeah, let me know down below your thoughts. I really appreciate the love, and peace out, y'all.